Hey everyone, happy Sunday night. It is once again the BattleCry, and I'm your host, Mark Meckler. And this week we have a very special BattleCry call to action for you. Because why? It's the week. This is Constitution Week. So our special call to you is get out there and read the Constitution. Even if you've already read the Constitution, a lot of folks haven't. But even if you already have, get out there and read it again. Study it. Spend some time in it. Go to conventionofstates.com/1787. Download a pocket guide, a pocket constitution, read it, share it with your kids. If you have young kids, share it with your older kids. Maybe they haven't read it recently. Share it with your parents, your friends, your family, your church. This is the week. This is the week to read the Constitution, study it, revere it, and spread it around because it is the foundation of our nation. Specifically today, September 15th, I think most important day in American history. Why do I say that? Anyone? Because it's my wife's birthday, of course. And if you've been married any amount of time, you know, if you're a guy, you forget your wife's birthday, you're in big trouble. So don't forget, it's Patty's birthday today. But more than Patty's birthday, maybe not more, but at least equal, is that September 15th, 1787 is the day that Colonel George Mason stood up at the Constitutional Convention 2 days before the end of convention. And he said we had a problem with the Constitution. He said that we'd given the federal government the power to propose an amendment. We hadn't given the same power to the people acting through the states. He proposed the second clause of Article 5 to restrain the tyranny of the federal government. He asked a question which resonates through the ages, which is, are we so naive that we believe that a federal government that becomes a tyranny will ever propose amendments to restrain its own tyranny? I think it's a forward slap moment. Of course not. And we know that because Madison's notes reflect what Mason said, and then they reflect nin com. That's a Latin abbreviation for no comment. There's no debate, no discussion. Nobody disagrees with them. And instead, it's introduced the second clause of Article 5, which is then unanimously adopted into that Constitution on September 15th, 1787. So this week, we remember not only September 17th, the day that the Constitution was signed and released, but remember September 15th, which is Article 5 Day. So get out there, celebrate that. Go to conventionofstates.com/1787 and spread that around. You know, I'm a positive guy. We got a lot to celebrate. We got still the best nation on earth, still the best chance to cheat history of any nation on earth. We're the longest surviving republic in history, and I believe we can continue to survive if we do the right stuff. And part of that is getting out and voting and participating in elections. You know, early voting starts tomorrow, believe it or not. I know that's hard to believe. I don't like that we have early voting like this, but Pennsylvania early voting starts tomorrow. And in the following weeks, more and more states will be coming on with early voting. If you have early voting in your state, get out there, get it done, bank your vote. I'm a fan of going to the polls anyway and doing your early voting at the polls as opposed to mail-in voting. But whatever you got to do, get your vote in. You don't want to find yourself on polling day where you forget to go vote or you get called out of town or you got a sick kid or whatever. You got to bank your vote. So get in there, encourage everybody you know to get out and vote. And by the way, I would recommend the best get out the vote strategy. Pick 10 people who are kind of like you, who share your political philosophy, who you don't know if they'll vote for sure, and hound them to vote and keep hounding them until they tell you their vote has already been cast. All right, last week we had maybe the seminal event of this election season, and that was the debate between Kamala Harris and President Trump. And it was a slugfest for sure because it was a 3-on-1 slugfest. This is like some kind of World Wrestling Federation match with tag team of 3 against 1. The moderators were literally the most biased I'd ever seen in a presidential debate. It was truly horrifying. Very, very difficult situation for President Trump. You could hear it in the way the questions were put out, the way they were asked to Trump versus Kamala Harris. You know, they're asked to Trump essentially, you're a horrible person with terrible policies, and how do you defend yourself? How can you possibly defend yourself? And then they would go to Kamala Harris and say, he's a terrible person with terrible policies. Don't you think so? And it was really bad. And Kamala Harris, on the rare occasion when she was asked direct questions, literally, not figuratively, did not answer a single one of those questions. So I think it was incredibly biased. I think it was a mistake to go into a debate that way. I think so. The bias showed and made it very difficult for President Trump. To me, it kind of looked like Kamala Harris maybe had the questions in advance. There's now, I just saw on the web that somebody's going to come out with a signed affidavit that they work at ABC, and that they know that she had some form of the question. So we'll see how that unfolds. But the bottom line is the bias was self-evident. Trump was definitely under the gun. That makes him an underdog there. The 3-on-1 makes it very difficult. But credit where it's due. Kamala Harris memorized her talking points. She did better than I've actually ever seen her do, except for maybe her first debate in the last presidential election. But she was, I would argue, pretty articulate. She didn't speak in her usual word salad. She didn't repeat herself like she usually does. She had obviously rehearsed and memorized quite well. And the flip side, I just think Trump did a poor job. And I got a lot of grief for this, by the way, on X. I was posting in real time, and I just didn't think he was doing well. I don't think he was well prepared. I think he had one main job, and that is just to repeatedly say, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? This is Kamala's economy. This is Kamala's withdrawal from Afghanistan, where 13 Americans died. This is Kamala's inflation. This is Kamala's war in Ukraine. All of those things I think he could have pinned on her. And I honestly think he failed to do so. And that's on him. That part, not on the moderators, not on Kamala Harris. I was just not pleased with Trump's performance. It's almost like he didn't take it seriously enough. Maybe he's not capable of debating in those circumstances. He doesn't present in a debate kind of fashion. He likes to just ramble and roll, and he does a great job of that. It's very entertaining for rallies and speeches, but not so much in a debate. So I don't think it's going to cost him. Those who support Trump are still going to support him. Those who weren't sure who they were going to support, I think they're still not sure because they didn't get anything of substance from Kamala Harris. And that's kind of what we're seeing on the polls, the immediate stuff that came out immediately after the debate. The majority of people, about 2/3 of people, thought Kamala actually got the upper hand in the debate. And I think that's pretty much correct. But they also trusted Trump more on the number one issue, which is the economy. So even coming out of a bad debate performance, they trust Donald Trump more than they trust Kamala Harris. I think that's going to continue to be the case. And I think Kamala Harris is going to have more and more trouble as we move through this election, as she's asked real questions, if she's ever asked real questions. We'll see what happens. But the bottom line is people want to know her actual positions, and they don't. And they're uncomfortable with that. And they should be. It's outrageous to me that she's even in the running. She hasn't stated her actual positions on anything. Her surrogates have said she's flip-flopping on everything. So I don't think that you can look at the polls and know what's going on yet. I've told you a couple of weeks in a row, I think don't pay too much attention to the polls. Don't get too hooked up in the polls. And I think that's especially true right now. We have not seen the polls actually coming out of this debate yet. It'll take a week, 8 days, 10 days for that to actually flesh itself out. But here's some good news in the polls. I can tell you that right now, Trump, and this is even pre-debate, is outpolling Trump in 2016 and 2020. So his numbers now are better than his numbers where he was in 2016, and better than where they were in 2020, which was better than 2016. And right now, Harris is actually underpolling Clinton in 2016 right now. Clinton was doing better at this point in 2016 than Harris is doing. And she's underpolling Biden right now in 2020, and he, quote unquote, won. So those are kind of good indicators. But again, don't pay too much attention to the polls right now. Certainly don't get cocky. If you're hoping to see a Trump presidency, what you need to do is work, and work some more. It's going to take everybody working for their candidate to be victorious. This is going to be a close race no matter what. Anybody who tells you that the race is over and that Kamala Harris won after the debate, they're out of their minds. Anybody who tells you that President Trump is going to run away with this, they're out of their minds. This is going to come down to tens of thousands of votes in swing states, a small percentage in a small amount of areas, in a small amount of swing states. And so especially in those states, for example, if you're in Pennsylvania, you better get to work. Speaking of Pennsylvania and a relatively blue state, a swing state there, but not too far away, Newton, Massachusetts, a very blue state, what I would describe as a blue state hellhole. I know we're not supposed to say that kind of stuff, but I think it is. And I think I can say that because I got a lot of family there. Patty's entire family is from Massachusetts, and most of the relatives are still in Massachusetts. In Newton, Massachusetts, there was a pro-Israel, pro-America protest, very small protest, just a few people walking down the street with flags and the like, and a pro-U.S., pro-Israel guy not a Jewish guy, just a guy walking with a US flag, Israel flag, I guess, was viciously attacked by a pro-Palestinian, I would say pro-Hamas supporter. A guy who was screaming at them from across the street, wearing a pro-Palestine pin, ran across the street and tackled this guy unprovoked to the pavement. There was a scuffle between the two of them. There's video on this, and the attacker was shot and wounded. I want to clarify what happened and be really clear about this so you can see it in the video. Unprovoked, guy runs across the street, tackles somebody, pins him to the pavement, and gets shot in the gut in the process. So, of course, self-defense, right? I mean, that's what you would say. The guy was legally carrying that handgun. He had a permit to be carrying that handgun, and he used it clearly in self-defense, but it's Massachusetts. As I said, a blue state hellhole. So the attacker, the guy who assaulted the pro-American, pro-Israel guy, has not been charged. But the guy who defended himself with a legally carried handgun, of course, he's facing multiple charges. The good news is, so far, almost $100,000 has been raised on GoFundMe. By the way, I wouldn't use GoFundMe if I were you for this sort of thing, if it ever happens to you, because I doubt they'll let it fund. They are a leftist organization. You should use Give, Send, Go instead. They have different politics, but Producer G can put this up. The GoFundMe for Scott Hayes, the veteran pro-American, pro-Israel patriot who ended up having to defend himself in Massachusetts and now finds himself being prosecuted. So the lesson in all of that, yes, carry legally. Yes, in every state. It's legal in every state. You should do it, but be prepared. Have concealed carry defense insurance. I carry insurance from USCCA, so you should pick an organization, get yourself some insurance, and be ready for this kind of thing. If you ever have to defend yourselves, especially if you're in a blue state or a blue city, you're going to be prosecuted. All right. Friday night was the debut of Am I Racist, Matt Walsh's new movie. Did you see it? I hope you went and saw it. They started with a pre-release in 400 theaters, and by the time it released on Friday night, by the time of the debut, it was in over 1,500, maybe upwards of 2,000 theaters. This is an incredible theatrical debut success. This is a first for Daily Wire, first for Matt Walsh. Congratulations to those guys. They are allies. We love them. So proud of what Matt Walsh did. One of his producers, really good friend of mine, Sean Hampton, really proud of them for what they did with this film. It's a great film. If you haven't seen the film, you got to see the film. If you want to watch a bunch of DEI kooks humiliate themselves, you're going to see it. If you want to see what a grift it is, this whole DEI thing is just a grift. It's a way to fleece guilty white people for money. They pay money to try to feel less guilty. And there is some incredible footage in there of a bunch of crazy mostly white women who absolutely humiliate themselves in the way they're willing to go into these struggle sessions, these Maoist struggle sessions, and call themselves racist and be embarrassed about their quote unquote white supremacy and white privilege. And Matt Walsh does an amazing job of showing how ridiculous all this is. Now, one of the funniest things to me about the whole movie is Matt Walsh is in disguise. And when I say Matt Walsh is in disguise, if you've seen any of the trailers, that in and of itself is hilarious. All he does is put on a wig with a little man bun or a little ponytail in the back. That's pretty much it. He looks like Matt Walsh. He didn't shave off his beard. He refused to shave off his beard. He changed his glasses. He's wearing wire rim glasses and a tweed coat, but it's Matt Walsh, for God's sake. He looks exactly like Matt Walsh, and nobody recognized him. Unbelievable. He got an interview with Robin DiAngelo, the queen of the DEI grift, the author of White Fragility, completely humiliated her. She's written a statement attacking Matt Walsh and the movie, which is fantastic. Thanks for the promo, Robin DiAngelo. By the way, I'm not getting paid for this review or this promo. I'm just going to tell you, absolutely get to a theater and go see Am I Racist? You won't be sorry. It's hilarious, provocative. It humiliates the DEI crowd, and we need more and more of that. So congratulations to Matt, Sean, Ben, all the crew over there at Daily Wire. You guys did a great job. You're doing a great favor for our society. I have a question for you. How delicious are the dogs and the cats in Springfield, Ohio? This is the big controversy right now, right? Are the Haitian immigrants eating dogs and cats and geese from the local pond, or are they not? And I think the actual way to deal with this controversy is to say, I don't know whether that's true or not. It seems like it could be true. I've seen on X a lot of people who are from Haiti or have relatives from Haiti saying, absolutely, this is done in Haiti. Absolutely, it's part of Haitian culture, part of the voodoo religion, all of that stuff. So I've seen that. I've seen people say that who are on X, who say they know people it's happened to. I'm not saying definitively it's true. I don't know. But I am saying what you have in Springfield, Ohio is an absolute clash of cultures created intentionally by the Harris administration. And I say here specifically the Harris administration, Kamala Harris is on record bragging about bringing in over 100,000 Haitians under temporary protective status. And I'm going to say it. I know it's impolitic to say it, but yes, Haiti is a hellhole. This is a terrible country, right? It is completely corrupt. It is a lawless country run by gangs. The culture's bad. And we're bringing those people in mass into the United States and depositing 20,000 of them in Springfield, Ohio, a town of a total population of 60,000, about a third of the population now just dropped on them in the last couple of years. You think that's going to cause problems? What do you think? You've got people who don't know the laws, driving cars without driver's license. You had a young boy that was killed in a school bus accident by a Haitian driving on an expired Mexican driver's license. He doesn't know the laws in the United States. We have reporters on the ground reporting traffic accidents all over the place involving Haitians who don't know the laws and don't respect our laws here. This is not an anti-immigrant trope. This is on the ground in that community. You have the cost of housing skyrocketing and pricing Americans out of the market. They can't afford it because the housing is supplemented. The money is given to these Haitian immigrants to pay for the housing, which means that the prices go up and means that locals can't afford housing. You've got services stretched to the max, medical services, school services, hospital services, law enforcement services, all intentionally imposed on Springfield, Ohio by who? By Kamala Harris. So if this is what you want in the United States, then by all means, you should vote for Kamala Harris because this is what she's for. This is what she's done. This is what should have been actually exposed at the debate. This is what Trump should have hammered on, not dogs and cats, but everything else that's going on. That's inflammatory. It's fine. I don't mind the occasional inflammatory story if it's true, but whether it is or not, the bottom line is we have a gross problem, not just in Springfield, Ohio, but all over the country in small towns where these immigrants have been dumped by the federal government, pumped full of cash, and it's destroying the local fabric of the local communities. Again, you can integrate immigrants, but that's not the integration of immigrants. That's the destruction of American culture, and we're going to have to do something about it. I think these people have to go. They have to go back to Haiti. They have to go where they came from. I think this is true of people all over this country, the millions who've come in illegally. I don't think these are in illegally per se. We don't know anything about that. It seems like they're there under temporary protective status legally. That makes it even worse because it's being fostered and fomented by our own federal government. All right, here's my big subject for the week. And this is a difficult one. And I'm sorry to have to raise it and frustrated to have to raise it. But we have a radically rising anti Semitism, anti Americanism, anti Westernism in the United States and around the world, both on the left and the right. Now, I expect this from the left. The left is Marxist. The left is totalitarian. The left wants to overthrow the Western world and turn it into some kind of totalitarian utopian hellhole. Seems like hellhole is coming up a lot on this particular battle cry, but it's just the way it is. And this is going on, and I expect this from the left, and it's been taught by the left for a long time, at least since the 1960s, overtly in our schools, in our universities, in our high schools and middle schools, and obviously now down into our grade schools, this idea that America is the great evil in the world, that the Western world is the great evil in the world. And this idea has infected our population, and it's now grown out into an open anti-Semitism. It's not just anti-Americanism, anti-wokeism, anti-Westernism. It is an anti-Semitism. And I'm going to get hammered for this, for bringing this up and saying this is anti-Semitism. I'm going to get hammered because I'm going to take it out because I'm open about it. You can't see that. Yeah, I'm Jewish. I am a Jewish Christian. So a little bit of a unique mess, confusing for some people. I was raised in a secular Jewish family. I accepted Christ at 51 years old. Some people call that being a Messianic Jew. I just think it means I'm Jewish, and I believe that Christ is the risen Messiah. So I'm a Jewish Christian. But I can tell you that these constant attacks now on Israel, they're not just attacks on Israel, they are anti Semitic. Israel is the only, I repeat that, the only Jewish country in the world. There are Christian countries, there are many, many Muslim countries. Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people, the original ancestral homeland. People are trying to call the Jews colonizers, Israel colonizers. They're not colonizers. They go back thousands of years. There have been Jews living in Israel, in those lands for thousands of years. The idea that they're somehow colonizers is in and of itself anti-Semitic. What we saw, that Palestinian sympathizer attacking Steve Hayes in Newton, Massachusetts, that's anti-Semitism. And it's growing and getting broader. One of the leading proponents of all these crazy anti-Semitic tropes nowadays is Candace Owens. And look, Candace Owens been famous on the right for a long time, came over from the left. She is just down the cesspool of anti-Semitism at this point. Like all this incredible propaganda that she's spewing that is not just anti-Israel, but anti-Jewish propaganda that she's spewing. It's hard to even watch her speak anymore. And there's a lot of people, a lot of young people getting caught up in this and dragged into this. You've got the Tate brothers, anti-Semitic, now converted to Islam, right? And these are mainstream guys getting lots of followers, young people all over the world, not just in the United States, anti-Semitic. And I'm sorry to say it now, and I'm frustrated by it, and I'm hurt by this, but my friend Tucker Carlson is now falling into this approach. And I want to be clear about Tucker. I'm not saying Tucker's an anti-Semite. I consider Tucker a friend, but I am saying that he is giving play to anti-Semites. He's giving play. He just had Daryl Cooper on his show, said he was the most underappreciated, most honest historian in America right now. The guy's not even a historian, I would argue, not even a scholar. He trades in pro-Hitler, anti-Western tropes. And if you listen to Tucker's interview with Daryl Cooper, which I did, Tucker's very supportive of everything that Daryl Cooper's saying, which is saying that the villain of World War II was literally Winston Churchill, not Hitler. That all those people that got killed in those concentration camps, it's just because they didn't know how to handle all those people once. It had nothing to do with Mein Kampf. Has anybody read Mein Kampf, where Hitler lays out his plan for the Jews, lays out his plans for the Russians? Millions of people killed at the hands of Hitler and the Nazis. And we're going to say, literally going to say, that Hitler was not the bad guy in World War II. And Tucker is promoting this. There is a dangerous phenomenon rising on the right, and we have to be very well aware of it. And in my opinion, we should speak out against it. And I am speaking out against it. And by the way, I'll catch a lot of flack for this. I'm sure I will get emails over this. I'm sure I will get comments over this about how I'll get called all kinds of names because I wear a Jewish star and all this stuff. I'm a traitor. I'm a traitor to America. Save your ink, save your digits on this. I've heard it all before. You can attack me all you want. We better speak out against this stuff, or we are moving towards some kind of far right fascism. And I don't want any part of that. I'm not going to have any part of that. And I will stand with anybody who's willing to stand against this. Seth Dillon at the Babylon Bee stood strong against that. There was a great op-ed column in the Wall Street Journal standing against that this week. I don't always agree with everything in the journal. Their business pages now totally left, but their opinion pages are pretty good. There was a great Wall Street Journal column on this. A lot of people are standing against this. You and I are going to have to stand against the anti-Semitism, the anti-Westernism, the anti-Americanism, and we're going to have to stand together. And I don't know what the heck these people think they're doing right now. The country's at stake. This is a very bad time to be doing this. Going into election, there's a big fight. We should be standing together, and we should definitely be standing together because today is Article 5 Day, the 15th of September. Don't forget the 17th of September is actually Constitution Day. So take the Constitution Challenge, read the Constitution, tell your friends, go to conventionofstates.com/1787. You can get a pocket Constitution for free. There's a free fun activity book for your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews, lots more there. conventionofstates.com/1787. Let's not forget, also this week is the birthday of the United States Air Force. That's September 18th. The men and women of the Air Force deserve our respect. Maybe not their leaders so much anymore, but the rank and file of the Air Force. September 18th is their birthday. Don't forget, by the way, to go to Article 5 Outfitters. This cool tee that I've got on, I love this tee. Original grassroots established 1776. This is one of my favorite shirts. It's got the, let's see if you can see it. Oh, here, I'll stand up a little bit. On the back is that's the preamble to the Constitution. Producer Gio killed me for talking away from the microphone. So the back is the preamble to the Constitution. Front is original grassroots established 1776. Get yours today at article5outfitters.com. Let's go to Q&A before we close out. You can put your questions in Q&A at conventionofstates.com/askmark, conventionofstates.com/askmark. Robert Gable asks, when it comes to the term limits part of the COS resolution, how do you answer the lines such as, we have term limits, it's called voting? Yeah, well, the way the system is set up right now, it's an incumbency protection racket. The incumbents have such a huge advantage, especially in Congress. They have the franking privilege, which allows them to mail for free stuff that would cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for a challenger to mail. They get to do it for free, talking about how wonderful they are. They have access to the top level consultants who will not consult for challengers to incumbents, because then no incumbents will ever hire them. So there's a racket there, an internal racket. They have access to the donors, right? Because the party supports the incumbents. The party knows all the donors, has relationship with the donors. Very hard to unelect a member of Congress nowadays. Unelect a senator, even harder. And so because it's so difficult to unelect an incumbent, especially within the same party, I think we need term limits. And I think that's the answer. And by the way, I'm a little bit on the margin as term limits. I do think we need term limits on bureaucrats and staffers, and we can do that under Convention of States. But when you look at the retention rate in Congress, voting doesn't look like it's enough. Our system has changed in a way that makes it very hard to throw out incumbents. It wasn't always that way. It wasn't that way when the country was founded. In fact, there were no parties when the country was founded. So maybe we didn't need term limits back then. And frankly, I just think it's up to the states if they want to impose term limits on their delegations. We can do that state by state. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court said, I think it was 1987, that states aren't allowed to impose term limits on their own congressional delegations. And I think that's outrageous. All right, JBS, what counts as a state legislature passing an application for a convention for proposing amendments? Just the General Assembly, or can a statewide ballot initiative or referendum be used instead? JB, you can only do it in a state legislature. It takes a simple majority in both houses of the state legislature. The reason it's limited to the state legislature and not a referendum or initiative is because that's what the Constitution says. All right, that's all we got for this week. Again, I want to remind you, this is Constitution Week, so go to conventionofstates.com/1787. Take the Constitution Challenge, read it, spread it around, live it, love it, protect it, and we'll see you next week on the BattleCry.